今回は内田和成仮説思考をもとに、情報過多に陥らず最低限の情報から効率よく精度の高い結果を出す考え方を英語で確認していきます。最後に内容を確認する英語の問題を用意しています。日本語訳と問題の答えは概要欄に載せていますので、合わせてご覧ください。
Many people believe that more information leads to better decisions. But every job has a deadline. If we try to collect all the information first, understand the essence, and then collect even more information to find an answer, this method only works when time is unlimited. In real work, the more time we spend collecting information, the less time we have for decisions and action. Hypothesis thinking is a way to escape this trap of too much information. A hypothesis is a tentative answer. It has not been proved yet, but at the moment, it seems closest to the answer. This is similar to scientific thinking. We make a tentative explanation, test it, and deepen our understanding. People who work well form their own tentative answers early, even when they do not have enough material. Then they analyze and collect information to check whether those answers are right. The key to hypothesis thinking is to start from a possible answer. We do not analyze everything first and then reach a conclusion. Instead, we put forward a candidate conclusion first. Then we collect the information needed to test it. When we change the order in this way, information gathering gains a clear purpose, and unnecessary research and analysis can be reduced. What decision-making needs is not the amount of information itself. It needs information that reduces current uncertainty and narrows the choices. Information that only adds more options, or information that is not related to the decision, becomes noise. It increases hesitation instead of helping judgment. Before gathering information, we need to decide what we want to judge and what uncertainty we want to reduce. Hypotheses are needed not only for answers, but also for the problem itself. Business issues do not come with a clear question, like questions on a school test. In many cases, we first have to define what should be treated as the real problem. If the problem is defined wrongly, even an excellent solution will not solve the real issue. In problem solving, we should separate hypotheses for finding the problem from hypotheses for solving it. First, we form a hypothesis about the root cause behind the visible situation. Then we test it through competitor comparisons, customer interviews, field observation, and other methods. Once the cause becomes clearer, we form a hypothesis about which action will work, and test that as well. Hypothesis thinking is also the ability to draw the whole story of a job in advance. Even without enough evidence, we temporarily build a large structure. It includes the cause of the problem, the direction of the solution, and the actions needed. Then it becomes easier to see what materials are needed and which analyses should come first. We do not build up from details. We start with the whole picture and fill in the details backward. However, having a hypothesis also has risks. People tend to collect information that supports their own hypothesis and ignore information that goes against it. This is confirmation bias. Hypothesis thinking is not a method for collecting only convenient evidence. Good verification requires us to look not only for supporting information, but also for information that may disprove the hypothesis. A good hypothesis has conditions. It is not enough for it to sound plausible. It must help solve the problem, lead to action, and be testable. For example, saying that sales performance is poor is too abstract. If we say that salespeople are too busy with desk work to visit customers, the hypothesis becomes easier to test and can lead to concrete actions. To make good hypotheses, it is useful to keep asking, "So what?" When we face a fact, we ask what it means and what we should do next. By repeating this question, an abstract observation can become a concrete action. It is also important to keep asking why. By moving beyond surface events and going deeper into causes, we can get closer to a more essential hypothesis. Hypotheses are trained through experiments. In uncertain situations, it is often more useful to try something small and see the result than to keep thinking. A hypothesis is not the correct answer. It is a starting point that can evolve through verification. We make a hypothesis, run an experiment, see the result, and create the next hypothesis. The shorter and more frequent this cycle becomes, the faster individuals and organizations can learn. When experiments are costly, or when market feedback is hard to get quickly, dialogue can be an effective way to verify hypotheses. When we think alone, it is difficult to notice the bias or weakness in our own ideas. That is why it is important to share a hypothesis early with colleagues, experienced people, or even people outside the field. We should not wait until it is perfect. We should show it while it is still rough and improve it through feedback. Dialogue is different from debate, which tries to defeat the other person. In dialogue, the goal is not to defend our own claim. The goal is to understand the other person's assumptions and worldview, and to change our own understanding. For this, we need metacognition, the ability to observe our own thoughts and emotions. We also need to set aside judgment and listen to the other person's background. Feelings of discomfort or surprise should not be rejected. They can become clues for creating new hypotheses. In analytical verification, we do not need to aim for precise analysis from the beginning. First, we should do a rough and quick analysis to check whether the hypothesis is largely wrong. Business decisions do not require the same strictness as academic papers. They require enough confidence to move judgment forward. It is important to separate simple analysis for convincing ourselves from deeper analysis for convincing others. The ability to think with hypotheses comes from intuition supported by experience. To make good hypotheses with limited information, we have to gain experience by making and testing hypotheses. Even if a hypothesis is wrong, it is not the end. By asking why it was wrong and trying again with different factors, the hypothesis gradually evolves. Daily events and news can also become training material for hypothesis thinking. We can ask why a product is selling, why a company chose a certain measure, or what we would decide if we were responsible. Then, when the actual result appears, we can compare it with our own hypothesis. By repeating this, we train not only the ability to make hypotheses, but also the ability to think from another person's position and make decisions as a future leader. The most important attitude in hypothesis thinking is to make hypotheses without fearing failure, test them, and keep revising them. The ability to find an answer from limited information does not become strong from the start. If we only copy methods that already work, we cannot handle new problems. Learning from failure and continuing to evolve our hypotheses becomes the foundation for producing results in changing work environments. Review questions. Listen and check your understanding. Question 1. Why does collecting more information not always lead to better decisions? Question 2. When making a decision, why is information that narrows the choices more useful than information that only adds options? Question 3. Why do we need hypotheses about the problem itself? Question 4. How can daily events and news train hypothesis thinking? Question 5. Why is a hypothesis like sales performance is poor weaker than a hypothesis about salespeople having too little time to visit customers?
お疲れ様でした。内容を定着させたい方は、ぜひ繰り返し聞いてみてください。英語表現を確認したい方は、構文動画も合わせてご活用ください。